Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Tech Talk. We're very happy to welcome Bill O'Connor today. As you know, he's been working the room already, so he's like that guy in Devo who has to pass through the audience before the show starts. Anyway, he's with the strategy engagement team. He'll be talking about the Innovation Genome project, which he founded. So we hope that by the end of today, we're going to go away knowing more about how we can bring innovation into our own work processes. And please keep in mind we have time reserved at the end for Q&A. And if you do have a question, show that by raising your hand. And don't begin your question, please, until you have this microphone in your hand. That's for the benefit of the people that will be viewing this on Autodesk On Air later, which, by the way, it'll be posted up sometime next week. Without further ado, please welcome Bill O'Connor.
Thank you. Group clap, group clap. Thank you for showing up today. Fans of innovation, or haters of innovation, depending. My relationship with innovation goes back at least 20, 25 years. I sometimes liken it to a bad relationship, where it's like frustrating and exciting, but you're not quite ready to break up. So what I'm going to talk about today is a project we've been working on at Autodesk called the Innovation Genome Project. It's been going about 3 years. Who has even heard of the Innovation Genome Project? Who has heard really sort of bad things about it? Anybody? Wait a minute. Okay. Good to gauge the crowd. The root of the project, I think I could give a little background, is basically, so one of my day jobs has been CEO speechwriter for Carl Bass, CTO speechwriter for Jeff Kowalski, and oh, look who's here. Genome, people that know the genome. Oh my God. Fact checkers. So I can move this way, right?
You may.
Okay, good. So basically, so there was a period probably from like 2006 to 2010, Carl Bass, new CEO, and also Jeff, where we did dozens of speeches that at least touched on innovation, were about innovation. Who's been to AU and seen AU main stage over the years? Okay, good. So you guys have seen some of that stuff. It seemed like almost in every meeting with this Carl and Jeff speech, we're up at the whiteboard, what should we talk about? Innovation floats to the top, right? Now that was exciting for a while because it gave us a chance to do some thinking on innovation. What is innovation? What is it not? How is invention different from innovation? How is incremental innovation different from breakthrough innovation? All of this thinking about innovation. But look at that word carefully. Here's innovation. The thinking was about it, like around it, almost like a donut type thing. So at one point, John Pittman formed this new strategy group. And again, really long story short, we were talking about some things we do, and I basically said, John, innovation is driving me crazy. And then I started giving the talks, and people would come up to me afterwards, hey, that was a fantastic talk. Here's my business card, and blah, blah, blah. And I began to feel, maybe it's like vestigial Irish Catholic guilt, I began to feel guilty. Like, why are you congratulating me? I didn't help you. You're going to go back to your job. I did not do a thing for you. I was maybe interesting but not useful is the term I use to insult myself, which is, yeah, that was kind of interesting but not useful. So the thought was, all right, and then you look at all the literature on innovation is pretty bogus, frankly. It's just interesting but not useful. So the thought was, what could we do to create some tools that really Autodesk people and our customers could use to actually do innovative work? The idea would be like, you're going to go back after this talk and you're going to do your real work. This is not your work. Could we create tools that would allow you to do your work, not my work, more innovative? That was sort of the genesis of the project. Does that make sense? So let me start by making fun of the entire innovation field, if that's okay. Has anyone ever like read an article in innovation and had that weird feeling like it was Twinkie calories, like you didn't get any nutrition? Anybody? Good, okay. That's all I get, really. It's like ramen pride, right? It's not very fulfilling. Okay, so let's make fun of the innovation field a little bit in a very benign and hopefully charming way. So as long as I've been tracking it, it's been the topic. For the last 12 years, every time they do a CEO study, they ask the CEO, what do you care about? Innovation. It's in the top 2 or 3. In good years, it's number 1. In bad years, cost cutting is number 1. This is number 2 or 3. It never disappears. Articles, books, you go on Amazon, every book's got the innovation title. Autodesk has been one of the 50 most innovative companies. I have no idea why we're on the list. Did anyone see that? Who saw that when we were on that list? That list is the cool kids table in the lunchroom. Hey, I'm a journalist. That company looks cool, and I'm being facetious, but basically, there's very little rhyme or reason to the lists. If anyone wants more details on this, ask me afterwards about the Forbes Most Innovative Companies list. It's J.R.R. Tolkien fantasy. It has nothing to do with life on this planet or innovation. It's unbelievably weird that Forbes is like setting its sail with a process that makes no sense. So these lists are kind of weird. In my experience, the books are sort of not very useful. I was presenting this talk to Tom Kelly from IDEO, and I realized that I had his book up on the screen. It's called Backpedaling, Learn to Do It, Learn to Do It. So I made it like an homage. And I was like, well, clearly your book is the exception. This is actually a good book. That was a bad moment, though. Hi, Tom. How's it going? Oh, God, this is being recorded. This can never leave the Autodesk. It is actually a very good book. But, I mean, tons of books, tons of websites, tons of articles. Very ibnu, very interesting, but not useful. At least was my experience, right? So that's the groundwork. Now, here's innovation porno, right? Steve Jobs. It's not you. It's him. It's voyeurism. Do you guys get that reference, right? You got food porn. Porn's become this thing of like anything you obsess over. Who's read a book about Steve Jobs? Anybody? OK. They're good. They're just, again, not so relevant as to what you can do. I'm not going to create an iPad. He's done that. So to me, again, Jobs is associated with innovation. I think he was a savant. He was a genius. It's true. But again, how useful is that? Not so useful, moderately useful. If you really work at it, you can think, all right, I'll wear a turtleneck and I'll be mean to people. That's a nice best practice. Get it done. Get it done last week. That doesn't work, right? Although sometimes that's the approach. Steve Jobs was a jerk. I'm going to be a jerk. Who's ever watched the Silicon Valley show on television, HBO? Who likes that show? I love that show. That show I would recommend is very good, right? So you see everyone's sort of like, some once in a while they wear a turtleneck to be like Steve Jobs. So obviously this is not the end all and be all of how to learn to be innovative. Now it gets really interesting. Okay, I live in the Bay Area, so of course I'm a Democrat. You're legally required. You sign the paper. I live in Marin, so it's a lifetime thing, right? I like Obama still. This dude does not understand innovation. He used it 11 times in a recent State of the Union address. He does not understand it, I don't think. He thinks it means jobs. He thinks it just means innovation. He's a lawyer, right? Innovation is jobs. He doesn't know who, I think he knows who Schumpeter was and what creative destruction is, but he doesn't realize every innovation destroys as many jobs as it creates, right? So the most innovative country in the world, in my opinion, is still us, and our leader doesn't understand innovation. Very interesting, right? You can debate me on this. I presented this 6 months ago, and someone from the White House came up to me after, and they were kind of mad. And they invited me to the White House. I'm 51 years old, I've learned. Insult famous people, and maybe you can go to their house, right? Genius! Fantastic. I'll give that one away for free. You're welcome. Just do that. So he doesn't understand it. Now, China, I've gotten comfortable speaking to like high-level Chinese delegations with insulting them in a benign way. They want to be not made in China, but not made, but invented in China, designed in China, innovated in China. Obviously, I don't have to tell this crowd, they're miles away from that. Obviously, innovation in China, there's a lot of copying. From our own company, right? Thanks for the piracy, China. We made it so you could take it, basically. Also, the hacking, all this stuff. So, but on a more deep level, the culture of China, the closed nature of it, in my opinion, this is probably not pretty obvious, is going to be a governor on their innovation. But the point is, like, look at this. This is the planet, right? Two of the most high-powered people in the world. There's no evidence that he understands innovation either. So we're at this interesting point where we're all obsessed with an idea that we really don't define and we don't know how to do. I find that fascinating. This was good therapy for me because this helped me realize why I was kind of frustrated with the concept. We love it. We don't understand it. We often don't know how to do it. And I know that the people in this room, in this company, are often doing innovative work, especially in the last 5 years. I think the company's got more innovative. But I'm talking about sort of the general landscape outside Autodesk, the idea that there's a lot of confusion about innovation. But let's add a little light to the discussion. All right, so we all agree that innovation is important. Do we know what it is or how to do it? Ready for some English major design? No. Did you see that? See what I did right there? English major design right there. When you see the word innovation, think about no. Usually we don't, and even people that do innovative work do not do it as systematically as they could and as often as they could. I'm going to talk about innovation tempo later. That's a concept that even people that innovate, I think, can take some learn from. So innovation's kind of like a wave. Who knows what this is? Mavericks, exactly. I was just in Cleveland. I had to explain Mavericks to them. A wonderful landlocked tribe of people. They don't know about people surfing tidal waves, right? So basically, innovation is kind of like often, not this crowd, we're on the jet ski watching it, and of course now we want to be more surfing the wave like this lunatic, right? Can you guys all see this? An actual dude here. He probably actually is a dude. Giant wave. This is some stuff from like Jeff Kowalski talks. He surfs the wave, or you can do innovation. You need the mindset to do it. Oh, I'll surf a tidal wave. You need a skill set. He can actually surf, but he has the tool set, the surfboard. Innovation's the same thing. The most virulent curse I will say up here today is jackass, which is kind of a curse, but kind of not. There's a lot of well-meaning jackasses out there who will talk about the mindset of innovation and the skill set of innovation, right? Who's ever heard of a culture of innovation? Who's heard of a culture of risk? Who's heard of a culture of failure, right? And then you ask any leader, when's the last time someone walked into your office and said, I failed, and you gave them a raise? Crickets, right? Never happens at all. So I'm going to talk maybe a little bit about this, but mostly about the tool set. I'm going to give you guys 3 sort of like surfboards that when you're doing actually your work, you might be able to apply it. All right, one final point. I don't want to talk about concepts. There's enough concepts about innovation out there, innovation poetry. If you're in the movie The Karate Kid, who remembers that movie, right? How old? Even young people know that one, right? Ralph Macchio would have gotten his butt kicked if Mr. Miyagi had given him a book on karate, right? I want to give moves. That's how you learn to fight. In the parallel now, I've changed it from surfing to martial arts. Today, we're being asked to innovate. We have to do moves. We have to do moves in real time. All those tall blonde guys were always attacking him in that movie, right? They were jumping out of parking lots. He didn't know when they were going to come after him. He had to have moves that, I guess that was one of them, right? Was that like a jazz hands move? I don't know if that was in the movie. He had to have moves that he could do on the fly. He didn't have to, when they were attacking him, say, oh, I wonder what the book says, and get killed, right? So my point is more about moves. And luckily, the genome, we've studied 1,000, we're studying 1,000. The moves are from the best innovators in history. Not the people that create the latest photo sharing app for Android, which is fine. Of course, somehow I said Android, I looked over at you guys. These young people with their photo sharing apps, right? But real innovators, the people that did really the deep innovations. Okay, so let's talk about real innovation. What is it and how do you do it? What is it? This is our Autodesk definition. It's survived 3 years. I'm not going to talk theory too much. Basically, new or different. It's not always new. The iPhone was not the first smartphone. Most often, statistically, in innovation is something that's just kind of different, but it's a category that already exists. Creating significant impact is pretty obvious. Brought into the world, that is critical. Innovation is not creativity. Innovation is not invention. It's not brainstorming. Our definition, it's when you do something in the world and it takes hold, right? We just launched a 3D printer, right? Hopefully that's going to make the category, right? When it's out in the world creating an impact, that's how we define it. We can see that it's very different. Innovation is different. Invention is about, oh, new material, this is cool, aha moment, let's tweak it. This is, in the Valley, geeks in the dark creating beautiful things. Oh, my beautiful code. Who's ever seen Lord of the Rings with Gollum, right? My precious code, my precious. Who's a developer in the room? Anybody? You feel that way about your work, I understand. I'm not even going to ask, it's rhetorical, right? So we create beautiful breakthroughs, whatever it is, but then we have to get it to the world, and this is messier, right? Oh God, they hate the design. Who's our real customer? This is about ethnography, emotion, psychology. I made fun of the cult of Jobs before, but Jobs understood both sides of this ledger, right? You know what else he understood? The third part of the triptych. This is the Autodesk part, design. If you don't have great design, why am I going to change what I do? I'm not going to take your invention and make it part of my life until the design is great. That's the Autodesk pitch, right? So this is a triptych to keep in mind. When I talk about innovation, all I'm talking about is this. Invention is necessary but not sufficient for innovation. Innovation is the superset, right? It's a more robust definition. Who's ever seen this before? Innovation continuum. This is like an old chestnut. If Autodesk were teach your children, or CSN, this would be teach your children. I need younger references. I'm feeling like the crypt keeper up here. So basically the point, before we jump into the technique, this is something I think Jeff Kowalski and Carl launched maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Basically every innovation in world history goes through 5 phases. Human flight was impossible. Nobody could do it. And the value was low. Then it became impractical. The Wright brothers could do it, and 3 guys in Germany. That was it. On the whole planet. It's getting a little more valuable, but not so much. Then, when it becomes newly possible for a wide range of people, that's when industries are formed, careers, money is made, the press gets crazy. But then air flight, right, becomes expected and then required. Same thing with the web. I rode this wave with the web. You couldn't do the web. It didn't exist. It was impractical. A few thousand people got it. Then it went nuts in the late 90s. But then, hey, you have a website, don't you? And then it became, what's your website? Every innovation in history, and this is germane to our company too, anything we're working on at Autodesk, if we start here, it's eventually going to go like this and become commoditized. That is one of the many reasons you actually have to innovate, because it's like if you stop innovating, it doesn't matter. The world will push your innovation up this wave. Does that make sense? It's kind of daunting when you really think about it. But leading into the first tool, that's why innovation starts with the invisible, the impractical, the crazy, the conceptual over here, because this is where you get competitive advantage, right? Does that make sense? So that's what we're going to start over here. And this is, we need tools to help us work on the left side of the curve. Okay, so far, who here has found me useful so far? Anybody? No, I'm ignoring you. I have not been useful, but I appreciate that. Thank you. I'll give you the check later. That's great. I think I've been interesting but not useful, maybe interesting. Now let's see if I can become interesting but really useful. Everybody's going to go back to work after this presentation. Let's see if I can give you something you'll actually use. The Genome Project. When we started thinking about being practical, the obvious elephant in the room was we're not using something, and this is something I explored in a Carl Bass speech, 4 or 5 years ago. We're not using the fact that we have 2.6 million years of innovations. Stone hand axe, Africa. I like to think it was invented by Wilma, and Fred stole the credit. Who's the Flintstones? Any Flintstone fans out here, right? Wilma definitely invented this. Not the Flintstones where they had all like the birds playing records. That was baloney. That was not how it really was, I don't think. But this was the first thing. Someone said, I'm cutting trees, I'm cutting animals. The rock is good. If I sharpen the rock, creates more of a tool, right? The first innovation that we can touch. And then you think, well, the thought for the Carl Bass speech was, has innovation changed since then? Yes, we don't do that exact innovation, but let's see, has it really changed that much? Has it? Same thing. This is the first mobile device, right? Hey, I'm carrying it around, it's mobile, just like this. It fits the hand, it's kind of beautiful. Most importantly, expands human capabilities, right? The leap from no stone hand axe to stone hand axe was greater than Jobs and Apple made from crappy smartphones to the iPhone, right? So who's the real innovator? Wilma was better than Steve Jobs in a way. But the point is, if you go to the DNA, and now the genome is more than a metaphor, of both of these, they are the same, and there are commonalities between these two things. And therefore, you can picture a span of innovation 2.6 million years ago to 2014. Picture now 1,000 innovations in between. The predicate that pitched to John Pittman was, we'd have to be idiots to study that and not get some best practices. Turns out, hopefully, we're not idiots. But that was the way we set it up. We would have to learn something if there was a comprehensive study. Or if you wanted this stone hand axe, did you see the 2.0? It's much better, actually. Do you guys have this one? This is excellent. Better in a lot of ways, right? And then Shanghai Tower. 2014, 2.6 million. Picture the span. This is much more complex, but the principles are the same, as we're going to talk about. The DNA of both of these, more importantly, the transferable insights that can jump off the screen and you can use are very similar between these two. That was the exciting finding that we came up with, which is, it doesn't matter if it was an innovation, it has something in common with other innovations. There is a lingua franca, there's a coin of the realm, and we're going to talk about that. So we started thinking human genome. Who likes Pandora? Okay, Pandora can tell you, you like this song, you like that one, or bands because of that genome. We figured, hey, it's Autodesk, right? Let's do an innovation genome. Actual innovations, this is me, English major, trying to science it up, right? This is kind of sciencey, right? This is against certain parameters. This is an actual shot of the research. So we thought, let's try to be systematic. Let's try to make it a genome and see what we can derive from that. Transferable insights, that's the only thing that matters. If I don't give you guys transferable insights, this is like a PBS special, right? with worse graphics and worse production. So what's the point? Research the 1,000 innovations we think are the best practices that's still IBNU, an actual process people can use. So that's what we come up with. We come up with 3 tools out of a portfolio. Top level, this is how we did it. We realized they're not just tech, scientific, biz, entrepreneurial innovations. There's political, social, intellectual, philosophical, creative, artistic as well. We wanted to cast the net as wide as possible, so we thought we could get more robust basic principles. And then we took a big shot across the top of periods of history. Can anyone tell me what's wrong with this periods of history? Yeah, in Bill's cosmology, China does not exist. You know? Yes, I've forgotten Asia completely, right? But of course, we can all name the many, many innovations from there. This is just a shorthand. I didn't want our gut feeling on which innovations are important to be, sort of up here. Silicon Valley network, technology, et cetera, et cetera. So the point was we did this to give a balanced framework for selecting the innovations. This is a list we did to start off, right? And I find this fascinating because the premise is true. If you look at this list, this is the list, and this is like the years ago. It goes like this. So we start by studying this, and you realize, yes, when we look at the DNA of these things, there are certainly commonalities, even from something like this to that are the same. And then we refined it to this list. And again, now there's going to be 1,000. This is a temporary list. Something to think about is you don't only see the integrated circuit, but you see jazz. Jazz made an impact on the world. So did cubism, so did democracy, so did real estate, right? The point is to make an impact. My goal is to give you guys things you can use, not to catalog cool technologies. Technology is a very important part of this, but it is certainly not the only part. And that was an instinct we had, which I think is proven out. The best practices in the DNA that comes from things like cubism and jazz, very applicable today, even if you're not painting or doing music. So just to give you a sense, we cast a very wide net. So let's talk about best practices. I'll give you one example. I have had an army of MBAs from the Bay Area help me with this, free labor. In the very beginning, we basically said, all right, let's go tabula rasa. Let's look for things that no one has seen before. Braille. What do we notice about Braille? What did Braille do? Number one, he allowed people who were blind to read. Is that helpful to anyone in this room? Is anyone working on that right now? No. So go deeper. How did he do that? He allowed information to come in through the fingers. Okay, that's pretty good. That's not useful, right? How did he do that? He changed the design and performance of written language. Oh, that is a principle you can apply. He made it 3D. Everybody knew that language was 2D. It sits on the paper. He said, no, I'm changing that aspect of it so it pops up into your hand, blind people. You can now go, like this. And also it's a different language, right? That's not cursive. He did 2 changes to design and performance that took written language and amplified the power of it. So you tell the MBAs, okay, write down, design, change, design, performance, an aspect, an element, or even the entire experience. That is a good way to start, right? We did that probably 100 times. We did it, who knows what microfinance is? What did Muhammad Yunus do? Okay, he gave money to people, usually women in developing nations, and nobody thought they could pay it back. And what happened? Did they pay it back? They did, usually, 97% rate. So, that's not useful to you guys. You know what's useful though? Go deeper. What did he do? He ignored what everyone knows is true. Can you use that in your work? Yes. That is a question that everyone that does knowledge work should be asking a lot. If you start with what you're working on, all right, what can we ignore that everyone knows is true? The reason is highly paid, highly skilled experts are paid for their perspective. The perspective solidifies over time, and unless you consciously ask these questions, you're going to be the person that's part of what everyone knows is true. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Does this make sense? That's the danger, right? So another good idea from here, Copernicus. He said, yeah, I understand Catholic Church. You guys all know that the earth is at the center, but it's not. So again, don't do heliocentricity. That's already been done. But in your work, what can you do that is complete opposite of what everyone knows is true? Because when you look back at history, what we know is true is usually wrong. In science, in most fields. So we kept coming up with principles, and what we came up with was, and I can talk about U2's music in the Q&A if we have time. It's just too long of a story, but it's kind of interesting. So what we came up with is the idea that, you know what, the first thing we saw, different innovations, fire, democracy, steam power, Twitter, not much in common, but they do. They have a universal innovation question as part of the DNA. If you take this question away, you don't have any of those wild innovations, and it's, what can you look at differently? Now, the fact that you understood that the second it came up should not be confused with the idea that it's incredibly powerful when you ask that, and should be asked fairly often to give you a different perspective, right? Your next innovation, I cannot tell you what your next innovation will be, but if you stopped me in the hall 6 months ago and, yeah, you were that guy talking about innovation, I did an innovation, there's at least a 60% chance that what you did has at its root that you looked at something differently. Does that make sense? I don't know what you're going to do, but I can just tell by the pattern we're seeing, looking at something differently, you definitely have to start there. That's actually the big question. So let's create a process you guys can use. 7 essential innovation questions. We started seeing questions embedded everywhere. We had 100, we had 50, we had 28, 14, 7, 6, 7, 6, and then back to 7. These 7 are everywhere in the research, and they work in order. So basically the idea would be this. Take whatever you're working on that's an innovation target. What's an innovation target? It's the best or the worst thing in your professional life. Picture something in your head right now, the blood pressure is going to go up. Picture something in your work you're frustrated with, right? Yeah, I'm frustrated. Leadership's telling me to do this, frustrating thing, or something you're really excited about. That's your innovation target, or just a project or anything you're working on. And you ask these 7 questions, and the goal is to generate ideas. So you say, well, all right, project X, what could I look at in a new way or from a different perspective? What can you use in a new way or for the first time? What can you move, changing position in time or space? That was really the sleeper. I had studied innovation for 20 years. I never knew that just moving stuff was such a critical part of innovation, and it's so easy to do. Where did Henry Ford get the idea for the assembly line? Does anyone know? Yes, the meatpacking industry. He watched the animals go by, right, and thought, I could put cars like that. He moved something from another field to his field. You know what he did, though? He did it by accident. He was an accidental innovator. And my point is, if we can all acknowledge that, yeah, moving things is a big part of many, many of the greatest innovations, maybe we should say, what should we move? Let's move that to a different team, or a different discipline, or a different conceptual realm, or a different person, or move it in time. We have a weekly meeting that's an hour on Fridays. Maybe it should be every morning for 9 minutes. Maybe it should be every quarter for 4 days, immersive, right? Time and space moving, sort of a hidden move, but a very powerful one. Also interconnect. What can we interconnect? Things that already exist in a different way. Statistically, the most common. What can we alter or change design and performance, like Braille change written language? What can we make creating something that's truly new? Sometimes there is something new under the sun. I think money is not an extension of the barter system. Money is new. More to the point, when you take your project and ask, what can we make? Weirdly enough, things pop up. Things, systems, processes, et cetera, that you should have thought of, but you didn't. This is, in a way, just a checklist. And finally, imagine. What can we imagine to create great experience for someone? This used to be at the top of the list, but if you have a tense problem and I say to you, all right, let's go, ready? Imagine a great experience. It would hurt people's brains. It's like, oh, come on, I'm already working on this. Look is an easy way to start because it's the lazy man's way. All right, I guess I could look at it differently. And they get progressively harder. So these are in the right order. So again, if the power goes out right now and my mic cuts off, if you just used these 7 questions on what you're working on, every single time I've done it, the people say, yeah, those ideas, I would never have thought of them. So that's some benefit right there. It's also kind of fun. So that's the 7 questions. This is how I do it when I do consulting and workshops. Innovation target in the middle. I just got back from Cleveland, and boy, are my arms tired. Right? I had to say it. And this is what we did with Parker Hannifin. Who knows Parker Hannifin? Right? Okay. So we took a whole bunch of innovation targets. We generated tons of ideas. Right? This is the simplest way to do it up on the board. Okay, some quick examples. Right? I'm not saying to do these innovations. They've been done, but they sort of illustrate the point. Fire used to be the worst thing on earth. You're running away from it. God, oh God, it blew up the camp again. It came from the sky, et cetera. One person has to say, no, you guys go ahead. I'm going to look at this differently. This could be great. This can be a weapon. This can keep animals away. It can cook our food, give us light, give us heat. We can stay up at night, right, reading poetry or whatever they did on the Flintstones. This is the best example. Everybody knew this was the worst thing on earth. And one lunatic at one point had to go, I like this thing, right? I'm going to use this thing. I'm going to ride the beast. And that means you get civilization. So again, fire. I believe it's been done. Don't do that. But certainly don't ignore the question, because another way to put it, this is the pre-innovation state. They didn't know it. They thought this was normal. This was ridiculous. They were being morons. They were not using fire. We know this today. But this was the state. The way to get from the pre-innovation state to the post-innovation state is about asking questions. So right now, everything you're doing, you could say, it's in the pre-innovation state. I don't care how cool it is. It's a better question to ask. Just assume it is and think, all right, the post-innovation state for me would be something better. And questions are the bridge to get to that state. Okay, use, right? What was the internet used for back in the day? I was there in the first few years. Yes, it was used for cat pictures. Remember this? Yay, riding an invisible bike. Bop, 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 bop. eBay said, yeah, let's all serious up a little bit. Why don't we sell something, right? Don't do eBay, it's been done. But the internet was around for a while before people like eBay said, you see that thing that exists? I'm going to use it for something else. That is Ibnu, but what's not Ibnu is whenever I've done consulting and your project's in the middle, and we say, what are you using? Well, could you use it in a different way? We're not using what we have. Oh, that guy's a specialty. We acquired that company. Tech breakthrough, political change, right? There's a change in the structure. There's literally dozens of things that we could, the minute you ask that question, you're like, oh God, how are we not using that? By the way, my goal with this consulting is to elicit this response from people. Oh, how did we not see that? And the answer is because it was right over here, and you were faced this way. And the questions sort of grab you and force you to look that way. So what can we use is another good one. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you guys right now. This is a picture of me in high school. It was a lonely time for me. I don't look the same. I got a makeover. This is about spoken language. Language used to live where? This is about moving. It used to live in the air. And we were so proud of ourselves. Ready? Get that beast, etc. Dominion over the earth. Just moving it to a different realm amplified the power. Now it defies time and space. Shakespeare's been dead hundreds of years. We can still read him. I can take a thought and send it around the planet in less than a second. Don't do written language. It's been done. But definitely ask yourself, what can we move? And that's time or space. So that's a really important sleeper question. This one's kind of funny. Interconnect. Statistically the most common. Spear. First weapon. All right, I'm going to do a little acting play here. Ready? All right, Kelly, because he's just back. Ready? I want that food, fellow caveman, right? And I punch you. And then you're like, oh, no, you come back later. I have a stick. Oh, okay, good. I've sharpened a stick. You're dead. Spear, because I can get you from a distance, right? What's the next step in warfare after a spear? Anyone know? Louder? What is it? Bow and arrow. Handgun? No. Yeah, bow and arrow, yes. How long do you think it took our genius ancestors to figure out how to interconnect the sharp spear, the Monty Python pointed stick, with something that goes boing? You guys are all smart, so take a guess. How many years? Come on. What's that? Oh, no, we were much stupider than that. Yeah, 391,000. Let's give our jackass ancestors applause. Well done, caveman. Cave grandpa, you jackass. It took this long. Why? Here's the stick. Here's something that goes boing. You know what happened to them millions of times? They're trying to clean something in an animal, and they slip, and their stone hand axe flies across the cave. And you know what they did? Nothing. They didn't realize. Someone did, though. And I'm sure they killed him. Someone said, this is a weird thing. Dude, does this ever happen to you when you're cleaning and the thing flies? And it's like, yeah, you just ignore it. No, I did something. I took the spear thing and I went like this. And it's not, and they just killed him. Like this. They didn't let him finish the sentence. But the point is, all this is interconnecting. And by the way, working with Jeff Kowalski, I'm working with Brian Matthews. I guess I can share this a little bit on a keynote. Who's going to the Tech Summit? Anybody? Okay. This is something we talk about all the time at Autodesk. Stop writing, stop reinventing the wheel. Connect to other people. It's not our instinct, because you often get it rewarded for making stuff up yourself, right? But so the idea of interconnecting in a connected world, this is a very, very powerful question to ask. Okay, the next one. 391,000 years, things that are sharp, things that go boing. Just shameful. A shameful chapter in our innovation history. Alter. This one's kind of simple. Music. Tell me a characteristic of music. Well, you play what's written down, because that's the way Beethoven said. And then you're like, all right, no, I'm going to change an aspect of it, and I'm going to start with something similar, then we'll go wherever we want, and you get jazz. Don't do jazz. It's been done. But certainly, and Autodesk does this, you always, more than we do, ask, all right, we got our project. We think it's good. Change an aspect, design, performance, an element of it, or the overall experience. And again, this sounds obvious. Every single time I've done consulting or a workshop, 100%, you get ideas you wouldn't have thought of before. Because, again, we think our project is pretty good. And it could be. But if you play around, thought experiment with altering things, it gets better. Okay, make. The transistor, the compass, money. There are certain things that just are new, right? Statistically, what can you make transistor is statistically the rarest. But still, it's in the research. It's very important. And more to the point, again, every time I've done it, if this is your project, and I say, I'll give you an example. I was talking to an executive. Here's your project. All right, now, I'm trying to get him psyched up. What can we make? And the response is, I have everything I need. I said, okay. Number one, you have a cool project. Does anyone else in the company understand it, really? Do you think? No, not really. Don't you think you need to make a 3-minute video? Oh, yeah, that's a good idea, right? That's the feeling I'm looking for. Oh, yeah, and they sort of point to you. Yeah, that's a good idea, right? Okay, good. Okay, number 2, your cool project. Did you get enough sort of influence from the outside world? No, it's been sort of hermetically sealed. You should create an advisory board, right? Everyone in this room knows what an advisory board is, right? But until you sort of say, what can we make? In this case, that executive just hadn't thought to do it. Great idea. Number 3, do your people have a place they can go sort of to get away to work on this special project? No. Create a skunk works, create a lab, create a physical space. So a video, an advisory board, a space, I don't care what it is. It's a good question to ask, even in our complicated times. Here's your project. What else can you make? And again, it happens to be in the research. It's one of the top 7, but it also works today. Weirdly, too. That's a counterintuitive one for me. And finally, imagine. This one fell off the list for a while, but then it kept coming back on. This is the Martin Luther King question. This is when you just want something, you have a vision, and in a way the conditions are not favorable. Martin Luther King, terrible time for race relations. You know, this is why he's known as a great leader. I just want it. And that is in the research everywhere, not surprisingly. Or Steve Jobs, you know, again, he sort of saw the computer world like this, and he hated it. Drove him insane. And insanely great, right? And he made it insanely great. And his vision was, no, I just want it like this. Wozniak, let's go. Woz, you know, we're going to go hit in the garage, we're going to do it. And by the way, the order is interesting because imagine, so I've taken you through the 6 questions. If you have your project and you've steeped yourself in this way, the 6 questions, can you see now this is a good one to end with? You're hopefully a little exhausted and you say, all right, we've done all these other questions. Now, what can we imagine that would create a great experience with someone? Again, not one time ever have I asked this question in a workshop where 0 answers came up. It's always something like you're setting the bar higher, you're expanding the scope. The imagine question is very, very powerful, just like the look question is. So that's the 7 questions. You get different, better, and wilder ideas. I'm such an innovation geek that I actually counted. I've been in the Bay Area for 18 years. I've done 1,000 sessions like this. This always gets you different ideas versus traditional brainstorming. Always gets you at least a few better ideas and usually gets you wilder ideas. Ideas are the coin of the realm these days because companies like Autodesk are making it easy for you to make. Imagine, design, create is our mission statement, right? We're helping the world do all those things, but imagine is still the one I think that could use some work. We're helping design and create. Ideas are the coin of the realm, and so therefore generating them is important. So how do you use them? I have a list, or you throw your idea in the middle. What's that you say, Bill? Why can't you have a mnemonic device? I'm glad you asked. I have one for you. Here's the 7 words. Who can see this coming? First letter. I'd like to introduce you to your unlikely innovation muse. It's Lou from Miami. Lou, I'm glad you invited me here. I was from New York originally, but I'm Lou, and I will help you look, use, move, interconnect, alter, make, and imagine anything you're working on, right? Now, already you're annoyed by Lou, as am I. He's wearing a parrot shirt. He's got like a drink and a cigar. He would call it a cigar, right? But don't forget Lou from Miami. In fact, say it with me. 1, 2, 3. Good. Now say it with an accent. Good. You hit the Lou with like 7 U's in there. Very good. Lou Miami. By the way, when I had Imagine in the front, who can tell what it was? It was Illumium. It was Harry Potter. Illumium. It was much better. It was like, oh, we have a problem. Illumium! And the wand. So I suffered. The name is much. It went from Harry Potter to Lou. But I did it for you guys. So now I got to live with Lou instead of Harry Potter. But because look is the better way to start. Joking aside, it's the right way to go. So that's the questions, right? So now, aren't there more than 7 questions? Remember I said I want to be useful? How would you have felt about this talk if I started with this? Well, I have a very complex system here. You need a 7-day workshop, and I'll charge you a lot of money. This is annoying, right? This is what I usually think of innovation gurus. But now you've been through the 7, think of it this way. You might say, and I can give you these slides too. You might say, Bill, the look thing really generates some ideas. What else you got? And I would say, well, did you look at it from a higher level? Benjamin Franklin looked at the American colonies from a higher level. What did he see? He saw America, right? Did you look at it like a kid would look at it? If you guys aren't asking this question, man, are you missing ideas? Did you look at it more holistically? Can you ignore whatever knows is true? Value flip. I don't know if we invented this, but we found it. This is what we say. All right, you're happy with your project? Tell me one thing you think is great about your project. Now tell me why it's bad. Tell me one thing that's bad about your project. Now tell me why it's good. If you're not asking that question, you're leaving ideas on the table. Because again, those ideas are right at the other side of your head, right? So I don't use this every time I'm trying to like be innovative, I use it like a bingo card. I sort of see where my mind goes. I was like, all right, what can I remove, right? Remove is an incredibly powerful question. I just happen to land on it. So I would say if you're trying to actually innovate instead of just doing poetry, ask the 7 questions. You have more time, you can ask the 49. But you can see why I didn't start with the 49, right? Who would have walked out if I had started with the 49? I'm raising my own hand, right? So those are the questions, right? Oh, and here's the eye chart. Ready? Look, Lumiami. And then like this, and this, right? Another way to look at it, these are neighborhoods. You're trapped in here right now. Walk out and go into look. And there are ideas lying on the ground. I don't care if you go get them. But if you don't, then you're not going to get the full range of ideas. Walk around Lumiami, and then if you have more time, spend time in this neighborhood and look over here. That's the best way to look at it. Looking at it spatially makes you realize that this is not stuff you have to make up. This stuff exists in some sort of theoretical realm. You just got to walk around and pick it up. So you've generated some innovative ideas. Now what? This leads to the idea of what are we really doing here? And the point is, innovation is only about 3 things. If you do what's on this slide, you can innovate. If you do nothing else. If you don't do this stuff, I don't care how much poetry you have, you're not innovating. Generating the ideas, prioritizing them, what should we do, and then taking action. That's it, really. It's weirdly enough, it is that simple. So now how do we prioritize the ideas? Well, we need the Wild World Innovation Prioritizer, right? And I believe I invented the word prioritizer because Microsoft Word does not recognize it. If Microsoft doesn't recognize it, it doesn't exist, right? Those bastions of innovation up there. So here's what we do. Let's say we went through an exercise. We had Project X in the middle. We asked the 7 questions. We generated, say, 49 ideas, right? Almost always when I do a workshop, even in an hour, you can get 7 ideas per question. You can generate 50 ideas like that. It's kind of powerful. But now what do we do? For each idea, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. How wild is it? I don't mean wearing a bohemian beret wild. I mean competitive advantage, differentiation. That thing, that idea you're talking about, are people talking about it at conferences and in journals? Is everyone kind of talking about it, or is no one talking about it? And could it give tremendous value to customers, give them a wow, and could it scare the hell out of competitors, give them an uh-oh? 1 to 10. A 10 is like, God, that's amazing, and no one's talking about it. A 2 is sort of like, yeah, everyone's talking about that, right? Then you ask the worldly question. Can we afford it? Do we have the tech talent? Do we have the political will? Do we have the guts, really? How practical is it that we do this? Down here, it's like, up here is, we could do it tomorrow for free. That's exciting. Down here is, there is no way on God's green earth we're ever going to do this. It's impossible. I don't care if you have the best innovation techniques in the world. We will never do that. That's a 0, right? So let's see how it falls out in terms of quadrants. Now again, these are real ideas. Your 49 ideas. You have a messy whiteboard, and this is how you clean it up. First one, idea number 1. It's not really that wild. Everyone's really talking about it. And okay, Hewlett-Packard. They think that the cloud is wild. Do we think that? No. I mean, years ago we did. Now we kind of view it as like, hey, if I went to Carl Bass today and said, Carl, I have a great idea. Cloud. He would say, I have a great idea. Fired, right? That's a better idea, Bill, right? Because this changes over time. Today, how wild, how worldly it is. That's a boring idea. It's hard to do. Don't do it. It could look great over there on the wall, but it's bad over here, just relatively speaking. Let's go to the second worst category. All right, now that's a boring idea. I'm going to say Kelly. Kelly, kind of boring idea, but you know we could do it. It could give some value to customers and scare the competitor a little bit. So if it's in this quadrant, and by the way, this is a 3-7, you know, it could be like a 2-6. This is a schematic, right? You understand that. It's anything in this box. But schematically, a 3-7, you improve and move. You say, how can we make this sort of boring idea a little crazier, right? And it would be nice if we had an innovation technique, right? So this is recursive. Now you have a new innovation target. How do we make this idea wilder? What do you look? Lou comes in, right? Well, look, use, move, interconnect. So it really does work together. So ideally, you would move it, if not here, further over. By the way, this is a good way to argue. Because if we're just talking, this is what can happen. You can say, hey, Bill, I have a great idea, and you outline it. And watch this. And say I'm just verbally a little more aggressive. I say, we don't have the money for that. We don't have the talent. What's your next chess move? Often you're like, I understand. And you get a little defensive, right? When it's something like this, you can say, Bill, I know it's not, you know, in that case, I know it's not that wild. Let's brainstorm how to make it more wild, right? It forces a conversation a little bit more. The second best category is this. Oh, man, that's a crazy idea. I've never heard that before. Unbelievable. Really hard to do, though. Now you see this is better than that because it's easier to take a wild idea and make it more practical than it is to take the opposite. Does that make sense? It's much easier. So now you're trying to move this up here. You're saying, my God, if we could pull that off, customers would love it. Competition would be like, oh, freaked out. So now you're like, all right, money, and now you see what you're doing? You're getting into brainstorming in the right level where you're saying, how can we get the money, the support, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, the holy grail is this. Ideas up here have both, like imagination and practicality. 7 ideas. Could be a 8, 9. And I realized something. In those 1,000 sessions I did, every time in a session, say we're in a boring brainstorming session, right? Not that there ever was one at Autodesk. They've all been perfect. But at other worse companies, right? Even if you're in a boring one, when a 7 appears on the wall, this is what I've noticed. People, they all see it like an animal's crawled into the room, right? If a coyote ran into the room, we would all kind of notice it, right? That's what a great idea is. You see people pointing at it like it's a space. Yeah, that's it. They get a little excited, right? The corazon, the gut, right? And they start to get excited about it. The second thing that happens is, even if you're in kind of like a boring organization or your boss is sort of fed up with innovation, what people don't do, say a 7's up here, is say, but you know, our boss won't let us do it. You forget the pointy hair Dilbert boss for a second. You sort of, even people that are a little timid, I've seen this, they sort of go, yeah, we have to do that. And notice their body language, they're focused on the idea. They have forgotten any sort of negatives out there. So this actually leads to the third thing of taking action. This is a metric. Hey, we had an innovation meeting. We brainstormed. Really? How many 7 ideas did you get? If your answer is 0, I don't think that's a good use of time. I really don't. So I think this is a new metric we're researching now. But maybe more to the point, picture this as an exit going out to the third stage, which is action. Generating and prioritizing ideas are closed-door innovation. Again, this is Autodesk, but there are a lot worse places where outside that door, there be dragons. There be managers. And it's really tough to move something through. If you have a 9-9 idea, even the most sort of like stuck in the way boss is going to look for a way to steal that or take credit for it or something. So the point is, creating more powerful ideas is the best way to prepare yourself for the landscape outside the brainstorming session. Does that make sense? That's what you're shooting for. So then, action. Now it gets really interesting. We've generated 49 ideas in an hour, right? Then we took another hour or so to argue over them. We've come up with 3 ideas we think are good. Now what do? Let's start with the first one. Caveat here, I like to make fun of the innovation field. The thing I'm about to show you now, if I wasn't me, I would make fun of it a little bit. Because this is a beta. The first 4 of these 7 are new stuff. The last 3 you're going to recognize. Who knows the whole lean and agile movement, right? It's the Bay Area. We all know it. So caveat, right? The first 4 of these things I think are kind of interesting. The other ones you're going to recognize. But now, we've got our idea. Now what do? First thing we do, I've noticed that innovators, so the phases, right? And again, this is not just a description of what happens. I think this is a prescription for what you should do if you have something, right? So I think the first thing I've noticed, when I first joined Autodesk Strategy Group, I asked 10 people that I knew were innovative about how they innovative. One thing I've noticed is innovators at this company that get something through, they create a brilliant description of what they're doing. Has anyone seen this? I've had multiple people come up to me and say, I'm just trying to describe this thing. I guess I can mention names. Who knows Brian Penne? And who knows Carlos? Carlos O, right? Bio-nano guys and Penne. Is Penne here? No. How can you describe what Brian Penne does? He does everything, right? Penne is the master of this, I think. Many times, at least a few times, he's saying, like, help me with the language on this. He cares what it is. He cares about the one sentence, the paragraph. And a lot of the innovators here and elsewhere, they care about the language because I'm going to describe it to you and then to you. And if you guys talk and it's confusing, I lose steam. Precision language also indicates precision thinking. Very important at the beginning of the action phase. So you've got your brilliant description. Now let's get positive thought experiment. Idea X. My view is, I've seen people do this and I think it's useful. You just think, we do this, it gains traction here, here, here. You describe it to the end of the road. You stay mostly positive. These are fragile things at the beginning. So you do your thought experiment about all the good stuff. Then you go Darth Vader dark. Threat assessment. Now who in this crowd can say what I mean by that? Who is the threat? Your colleagues, yes. Whoever's giggling now knows what I'm talking about. And I mean this in the nicest way. I'll do it, flip it. You have an innovation. I'm working at my job. I'm not in innovation land. I'm trying to get some stuff done, and you have an innovation. My first instinct is, oh, God, really? I'm trying to get something done over here, right? So you have to do threat assessment. Bill is going to first be like, oh, God, really? But he'll come around. Kelly's going to hate it forever, right? Aaron is not going to be sure, blah, blah, blah. So I think threat assessment it's kind of like a SWOT analysis, right? So if you have a great description, a thought experiment of how it is going to happen, and then threat assessment, and you can do like this in a one-page thing, then it's time to go to the boss. Now this might be controversial. I haven't read this elsewhere, but I think this is true. You have to some degree, separate innovative work from everything else, right? Because we'll do our same scenario, right? I'm working, yeah, your idea is good, but I'm kind of busy, and your thing changes my thing. I'm not trying to kill it outright, but I may not be supporting it. You have to get boss approval to at least say, I'm going to try something new, okay? Can you protect me Tony Soprano style? Or Lumiami style, I don't care. So I'm literally, this is a beta of this. The other two tools have been tested a lot. This I'm working on, I love feedback. I think you need some sort of boss, and you guys do this, right? Who's walked into the boss's office with a PowerPoint, right? This is how you get things done at Autodesk. I think that's what we do, but when it's a really wild, innovative idea, I think you need a little bit more protection, a little bit more like, will you support me when they start to kill me, right? You need that. Then the rest we all know. Iteration and improvement, right? This is nothing new. Finalization, launch, and then ongoing innovation. And again, the first two tools are good ways to make sure we've launched a thing 2 years ago. Are we getting boring? Is our cool innovation going up the innovation continuum? Are we on the other side? Right? So that's why tools, simple tools, are necessary not just for the innovation, but also for the ongoing innovation, right? So again, apologies. I know this is semi-cheesy, right? This will be better a year from now, but this is a start. And again, this is an iteration, right? This is like a mediocre first draft. We'll try to improve. By the way, though, when I go outside Autodesk, this is not tautological to people. 5 minutes? Okay, you just saying hi? Yeah. Okay, good. How you doing? Good to see you. All right, I can wrap it up. Who's watches Game of Thrones? Who's ever read J.R.R. Tolkien, right? Right? This is the way to look at innovation. Most companies are in the city of excellence, the land of quality. This is where the Lannisters are, the king, the elves with all the fancy stuff, right? This is where the existing pre-innovation state is, right? Where are the great ideas? They're not in the city where the prestige is. They're out here. It's filthy out here. There's animal crap everywhere. You can get lost. You can get killed by white walkers or orcs, depending which fantasy realm we're in. It's dangerous out here. But this is where the ideas are. If written language is in here, hey, let's make it better. More scribes. Better pens. Make them write faster. Give them coffee. Blah, blah, blah. Make the letters shorter. That's all incremental. Where is the printing press? Can anyone tell me? It's outside, right? The printing press is actually in the, if this is Lumiami, interconnect the stamp punch and the wine press. The printing press is nowhere near where we think it is. So anything you're working on, if you can say it's in the city, you have to go out to the wilds to get the ideas. But look at the prioritizer. You go out, you get filthy, you almost get attacked, your toe is bleeding, but you limp back in with an idea, and then you can see how practical it is, right? You have to make it practical and scale it in the city. But that's the next time you think of it. If you think, why on earth can't we innovate about this? It's because you're trapped in the city. You have to climb over the walls and think of it as the Lumiami land. This is the look area. And if you want more, there's 6 ways to look. Think of it as a landscape. And just go away for 2 hours and walk around Lumiami and then outside that way. So wilds of innovation, this is research, and this is true. That's where the ideas are. And if you get that feeling you're stalled, it's because you're stuck in the city. Final things. Gorilla to gorilla, right? Autodesk is a big company. If you are feeling like the 800-pound gorilla, and this is written about too, startups, going gorilla, one way to do that is to ask these impertinent questions, right? In bad 800-pound gorilla companies, people are afraid to ask the questions. They're not trained to. Gorilla, you're asking questions. I'm challenging you. I'm challenging myself. So questions are always part of a gorilla operation. Accidental to conscious, these are just some final thoughts. Edison, Ford, all those guys were accidental innovators. They were some of the most anal retentive people in the world. Who's ever read a bio of Ford or Edison, right? They were some lockdown dudes. And yet, when you look at how they innovated, it was by accident. The prepared mind, a neural firing, and they got their idea. I'll bring in the meat packing industry thing. Accident. So I'm saying, We can't afford to be accidental, even if we're that much of a genius. More conscious is better. 7 questions, 49. That's a better way to be a little bit more conscious about it. Innovation tempo, we're researching this now. How often should you innovate? Does anyone in this room know? It's hilarious, right? Nobody knows how often you should innovate. I don't know the answer, but the answer is more than we do, I think. And I mean that by like not once a quarter. I mean literally in terms of time. And we're studying this now. I don't know, it depends. I think if a week goes by with no innovative thinking, you know, I'll leave that to your judgment. But the point is, we're researching how often you should innovate. It's certainly not every hour, but it's not once a year. 3 modes of work. This is something else to think about. I think there's a lot of talk about excellence and innovation. Do you know where we are? If this is a house, we're on the first floor, competence. I have a deadline. When you have a deadline, are you thinking about excellence? Are you thinking about it? You're going like this, right? And hopefully the result is excellent. But our mindset is often incompetence. We're just working activity. Then, at some point, hopefully, we start to say, all right, how excellent is it? And when we go to that realm, and again, maybe pretty rarely are we consciously in the innovation realm. My point is it's useful. I think it would be a little embarrassing to do a little daily log. In your mind, where are you, right? And we jump around. My point is we should probably spend more time on the 3rd floor, but it takes energy to walk up there. And when we're up there, I've just given you 3 tools that could work to help you do the work once you're up there. IGPA, Apple's going to sue me, right? You like this? What? Generating ideas, prioritizing them, taking action on them, right? What's your innovation GPA? I keynoted a conference, this is my snarky side, about innovators, right? This is what I did. Hey, everybody, how many people in this room have innovation in their title? Ready? 1/3 of the crowd raises their hand, kind of proudly, right? They kind of raise it like this, you know, me. You're welcome. Would you like a business card? Yes. It's a very impressive title, no big deal. Then I said, okay, how many people have it in your job description? Now it's 70%. You know, still a little arrogant, like, yeah, it's in my job. Oh, it's a critical point of my job. Don't worry about it. It's a very important part of my job, right? So then I'll say, good. How many ideas have you generated, prioritized, or taken action on in the last week? Crickets. Dead silence, right? I thought I was going to rush the stage. Last month, right? Now again, over the course of a year, at a cool company like Autodesk, we could do some innovative work. But do you see my point? What's your GPA? And again, we got measured in school. We're not measured in innovation. That's why it's kind of a weird concept. I don't know what the answer is, but what our GPA should be. In the last 2 weeks, I did one thing that I could consider innovative. That's it. And I'm the guy up here yapping about innovation. So it's just worth thinking about. It's an easy way to remember that if you are feeling stale or on a more positive note, you want to innovate and do the best you can, generate the ideas, prioritize, and take action. And you're going to have different things at different parts of the pipeline, right? So in covering it up at the end, this is the questions, one way to do it. Then you prioritize them like that, and then you zoom it through the pipeline. Those are 3 techniques. We've studied about 250 innovations right now. And I think this project is going to go on for another like 6 years. My gut feeling, we'll have like 5 to 7 tools. The first 2 tools I've shown you absolutely work. The 3rd tool is still in the making. But I encourage you, try the questions and try the prioritizer. It's a way within a 2-hour window to generate a lot of ideas and then to prioritize a bunch of them. Tidal wave, right? Got to surf the wave, dude. Let's get off the jet ski. Let's get onto the board. And I thank you. Thank you. All right. Questions, comments, insults, critiques? And everyone, if you have to leave, please leave. I know it went over. Yeah. Yes. Hello. Hello. Yes, go ahead.
The question is, would you agree with the statement that resources, the cost of resources for
Sorry, I can't hear. Sorry.
The
What?
cost of resources for true innovation, would you say that is more expensive in the current times than in
No,
past?
much, much, much cheaper. 1,000,000 times cheaper. Because, so you're saying the cost of innovation. Resource-wise, you're saying?
Yeah, for the resources to do innovate. True.
I think I feel like I know it's unbelievably cheaper. I was here during the first .com thing. Now we're here again. In the advent of the cloud, the amount of money startup get is like a factor of 10. It used to be, oh, I got 9 million. Now I got 900,000. Look what I made with it, right? Just the cloud alone, the ability to test things more quickly, the ability to get customer feedback all through the web and the cloud, I think that makes innovation much, much cheaper than it was before. I don't know if you disagree. Much cheaper.
I would say the minds you need and the labor people are more expensive than...
The minds are, and so you make a good point. The tool set mindset, the tools for innovation are ubiquitous, just like Autodesk tools, getting more ubiquitous and cheaper and easier to use and more powerful. Yes, that puts a premium on the mindset. So I would agree with that. That's why a simple mental tool like this, people seem to find it valuable because you know what? Everything I just described is basically free, isn't it? Does it cost you money to reserve a conference room and to spend a little time on it? It's free. So you're right, there's a distinction. The tools are making it cheaper, but the ability of human beings to think things in the imagine phase of imagine, design, create, that's more of a premium on that. But I would still argue, if you just have an open mind, this is free. Do you see my point? You don't have to spend a penny on this. You just have to spend a little time on it. Okay? Yeah. I hope some people from my group are going to critique or
I'm
ask
not from
questions.
your group, but I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So proof is in the pudding. So what are the coolest, or to use your terms, most impactful innovations that have been through part of your process from Autodesk?
Through our process?
Yeah.
I can't tell you details, but I'll tell you something I did 2 days ago. Well, I already told the group. All right, so Parker Hannafin, right?
Yeah, who is that?
It's one of our biggest customers, engineering firm, right? Long story short, and I don't think this is proprietary, I sent them 10 innovation targets. They picked 2. Happily, they picked the 2 best ones, 2 of the most out there ones, right? We did a full session, I presented, we put all the stuff on the board. At the end of the session was a set of 5 prioritized ideas out of about 52 or so. And I'm trying to check I'm using the EQ, I'm looking at them, and half of them they had not thought of before, but they were excited about. The other half was basically things that they thought could be good one day, but that had died, right? So that's the most recent example. An example before that was, have you ever heard of the HALT Prize, Clinton Global Initiative? Probably the best example of this is the HALT Business School has given me the most MBAs for this, right? So in turn, when they do the HALT Prize, is Clinton Global Initiative partners with the HALT Business School. They put $1 million here with the Gnome, and the best business startup from around the world for MBAs wins, right? So HALT is sort of an underdog. You've got Harvard, you've got Stanford, et cetera. The team from HALT, San Francisco, heard me talk, and they said, can you coach us on this? So, again, they're not expected to win at all. They had an idea to give women in developing nations a simple way to create a bank account through their mobile phone that's only used for food, right? That's the idea. So I'm answering what's gone through it. And they had a good nascent idea. They didn't have a name. We did 5 or 6 genome sessions. The company's now called Pulse. Out of 2,000 business teams, they made it to the final 6 in New York, right? And I'm not saying it's because of the genome, but it was because of the genome, if that makes any sense. God, I'm contradicting myself. But anyway, that's an example. That was innovating a whole process. And it was not just like, hey, we made it in the lab, Africa and India. Is that answering your question? So there's been a decent number. The third answer I'd say is I'm on the board of 2 startups, and I use this stuff all the time. Of course, and you can finish my sentence, I can't talk about it. But anyway, it's still early days because we've only been consulting for about a year, but I believe it's practical. So I'll have an even better answer for you a year from now. Yes?
Yes, you had mentioned in the beginning about like 2 world leaders that don't get innovation. Do you think that's probably true with also other Western leaders? Do you think it's more of a case of innovative leaders aren't interested in politics, or the voters are driving that in the sense that they don't get innovation, so they vote for people that are outside of that realm?
I think both of those things probably. I think, people that actually innovate in the private sector, government drives them insane. So drives them nuts, right? So I'd say that's one thing. I also think that politicians, if I have to talk to you guys and ask you to vote for me, I'm sort of thinking consensus, what do you want to hear? My gut is like the people that win the elections are often very outward focused, like, hey, what do you think of me? Enough about, what is the phrase, enough about me, what do you think of me, right? So I think that's part of it too, the nature of it. To get there, you have to be externally focused, whereas an innovator's got to have some guts really, and some like, I don't care what you think. You're wrong. You got to be able to point to someone and say, you're completely wrong, this is right. Does that sound like a politician? Not always, right? And I also think the very nature of government, which is consensus-driven and more bureaucratic and less efficient, government is better at killing innovation than the private sector. One of the people that really likes the Genome is the Chief Information Officer of the Navy. And he came in, we talked about this, he came in a while back, and I thought, all right, this is over my pay grade. What am I going to talk about? We talked for 5 hours about innovation. This is a guy who's a couple of ranks down from Obama, right? And it was amazing to me at his level, and by the way, he's one of our biggest customers at Autodesk, he really was honest about it. It's like really hard for me to innovate. It's like, you're the Chief Information Officer of the Navy. It's really hard for me. He looked at me like I was an idiot. I work in government, schmuck. Government. You know, don't you get it? I got it after the first like 5 minutes. So I don't know if that answers it. It's the inherent nature of that, but that doesn't mean there's not a plethora of books out now innovating in government. Have you seen them? It's hilarious subspecies, right? None of them. Most of them are terrible, right? But I have great hope. The number of government types that have contacted me about my innovation stuff is encouraging. Who knows Gavin Newsom, right? Okay. Gavin Newsom likes the Genome. And he had that look in his eye like, yeah, Bill, I'm trying to innovate in government, not the easiest thing in the world. So I think there's an inherent problem with innovation in the public sector. But and who knows the Code for America people? Anyone know that? Jennifer Palco and Tim O'Reilly, like the power couple. She's now the innovation fellow lead at the White House. So to wrap up my answer to your question, yeah, for all the reasons we talked about, it's hard to innovate in government, but that's a Silicon Valley thought leader in the White House trying to mess things up. So I think 5 years from now, it would be a better, government innovation scene would be better. Right? Okay. Yes?
Hi.
Someone?
So mine's actually kind of related. Basically, then what are the steps to sort of push innovation in an environment that is more prone towards just excellence or competence over innovation?
What are the steps?
Yeah, like like you mentioned, for example, you mentioned like just for a brief second, you're like, oh, we'll leave it outside of the job.
Yeah.
Because that's when it'll get all muddy. But it's if that is your job and you're trying to break an innovative project through, but it's just not able to go through because it's.
So basically how to get innovation through like bureaucracy?
Yeah. I mean, it's the same problem as the government.
Yeah.
issue.
My answer is pretty simple, and it also makes fun of all the books on like culture of innovation. I mean, our own CEO, Carl Bass, he was asked to speak at, who knows, TEDx. Carl was asked to speak at Berkeley TEDx. This is what I love about Carl. So, hey, it's an innovation conference. Carl's thesis after a couple of meetings was, innovation is not a corporate phenomenon. So, but he's right in a way. Creating a culture of innovation is the usual answer to your question. Well, you're the CEO. You have to make sure she feels comfortable failing and risking. It's all this weird stuff. I actually think the answer is simpler. It's about that prioritization matrix. Come up with an unbelievable idea, right? Come up with a 9-9. Do that hard work. First, look at the whole range, and then be tough about what's the 9-9. How do you take a 6-9, come up with a 9-9. Now, I don't care if you're in literally the comic book Dilbert, the comic strip, right? Or some nightmare like Office Space, right? It doesn't matter. If anything's going to get through that molasses, it's going to be an amazing idea. Even if your jerky boss wants to steal credit for it, he's riding that train, right? So I'd say that's the start. That said, there's all kinds, like in that third part, which is we're fleshing out, I don't have the answer. I don't have the answer, any comprehensive answer of how to get it through. But I really feel clear, if you start with a great idea, this might be obvious, starting with a great idea is the best way to get that momentum and then to be continued. I'll put it that way. That's about all I know.
We got time for one more over here.
Do you think there's a relationship between leisure time, both at work and personal life, and innovation?
Absolutely. I'm a New Yorker originally, and I remember I came out here for the dot-com boom, and I was working on a really cool website, and I was jogging in the marina, right? I was a super cliche, right? And it was a beautiful day out. It was probably February. I remember thinking, my God, no one can compete with San Francisco. This is the early days of the dot-com. And I thought, yeah, we're going to win this battle. Because I was outside, I was thinking about my website, well, like, Crissy Field, it was beautiful, it was relaxing. And I remember getting hit with that thinking. When I was in New York, I lived in a tiny box in the sky. And, it's much more, in some ways, more intense in New York. I could get into a whole thing. But so in terms of leisure, yeah, I think that work-life balance, I'm jumping into a hagiography of the Bay Area, but yeah, the balance, leisure time, relaxing, you know, meditation, just being more calm. If you really think about this stuff, you're trying to think of things that no one's thought of before, right? And we know the classic thing, I thought of it while I was jogging, I thought of it while I was in the shower. This is a way to really just amplify that. You know, the shower breaks you out of this mold of like, I'm in my job, and that's probably why you do it. And we all know if you just don't answer email for the weekend, Monday you're a lot fresher. I completely believe that. But mostly because the imagined part of knowledge work is becoming much more important. It's harder to do when you're tired or stressed or your blood sugar is low or all those things, right? If that answers the question. So I absolutely think 100% that's important, and this work is in sync with that belief. Yeah. So I think that's it, right?
Bill, how can people find out more and stay in touch with your thinking? Do you have a blog, forum? What do you have?
Scott Shepard was the first one to put up on the Autodesk Labs, right? That's where the genome lives. So you can email me, Bill O'Connor at Autodesk, or go to the Autodesk Labs site and search for Innovation Genome.
What if you guys had like a discussion forum in there or something? Would that be innovative?
I love that idea.
Yeah.
Question number 6, what can we make? He's innovating even as we're wrapping up here.
Using old tech.
There we go.
Right.
It's a great idea. But yeah, please feel free to reach out. I'd love if you use the tools and let me know.
Let's thank Bill
Thank you
O'Connor,
very much.
everybody. Thanks for
Thank
sticking
you.
around.